What's up, everyone? That's right. We made it to episode 100. Episode 100 of the RUDIS podcast, brought to you as always by us. Matt, what's going on in Ohio?
100, huh?
100.
That's pretty quick. It's kind of surprising that we've been on. I mean, it's been just over a year, right? So,
well, yeah, we did two a week for a while. NCAAs, we did a bunch of NCAAs, we did a bunch of the US Open. So we did a bunch of the World Championships. So I think that sped us up a little bit. I think, we're going right around a year. It's been awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been great. So, yeah, things are just cranking along here. It feels, I don't know what changed from this week to last, but it seems like wrestling season is fully underway now. I know last week we jumped in and had a bunch of things, but just the sheer volume of wrestling this week, it just felt like wrestling is here now, and it's just set in. Yeah, I
agree. Hey, I'll tell you, it feels like Christmas in my house. I got my new box of RUDIS gear. I got my brand new Rocky Balboa shirt on, and I want to ask you something, Matt. I want your opinion on this. I know you got a couple hot takes coming right in a little bit, so I'm gonna get you warmed up. It feels like RUDIS made their short legs a little shorter, which I know the kids are gonna like because the kids like the shorter legs. But how do you feel about old man Ben showing a little more thigh?
I like the legs, man. I like the legs. No, I mean, what we're trying to do, we're trying to constantly evolve. Just like, as you're a coach, you're trying to challenge your athletes to get better in new ways. Like every year we're trying to dial in our performance components on all our gear. Is it, and we look at it in a critical eye, just like we were breaking down technique. Like, one thing we've noticed with the fight shorts is like everybody tended to the last couple of years start rolling down the waistband.
Yeah, they do that all the time. I see it every day.
Which kind of showed us like, okay, maybe. And I think this is a societal thing. It's not just a wrestling thing. We've seen, the era of the jam shorts and the big baggy shorts, and now it's starting to go the reverse. It's starting to creep up, and people are wanting more custom fitted gear as opposed to just, street fashion gear. And so, we've dialed in not only just the shorts, we've dialed in the singlets, we've dialed in our performance shirts and our quarter zips. And, every year we're just trying to dial in and evolve our product that is consistent with the standard we want to create, which is the Olympic standard. And so, it just doesn't happen. We just don't make these designs and churn them out. There's a lot of, backroom discussions about, is it the best that it could possibly be? Where can we make it better? What new materials can we find? Do we need new panels? Do they need to be more breathable? Do they need to be a little bit more ergonomic? So all these things are going through our mind as we're designing the clothes. So I'm glad it's being reflective and you're understanding it when you put it in. So by all means, give us more leg, Ben. Give us more leg.
Yeah, apparently that's the kids love. Okay, Matt, I'm not even gonna set you up. You got a hot take. You were texting me. I said, Matt, I don't want you to text me anymore. I want you to save this for the podcast on Monday. So I'm gonna give you the floor. You know what? I actually think I might have some pushback against what you're saying, but we'll see where you go with it. Hit it. Hit your rant.
Well, I mean, the big thing is this whole portal thing, and I get it. I get. In this day and age, and I think there's a lot of positive things that are going on as far as, student athlete welfare, the rights of the students, the value of the student's name, likeness, and image. I think those are all great things we've got to do as a sport, as college athletics. And I'm not just talking about the sport of wrestling. I'm talking about college athletics in general. And I think for so long there's been, a long narrative, a long history of people saying, the rights of the athletes are being overlooked. Look at these greedy institutions. Look at this greedy NCAA organization that's making money hand over fist.
I hate the NCAA.
Off the backs of these athletes. And I think, an extension of that, they've started including athletic departments in the discussion with the NCAA about the rights of the athletes. Are they being fairly compensated? Are they being protected? Is the welfare of the student athlete being protected and safeguarded against? And so I'm by no means am I disagreeing that the student athlete should be first and foremost in the discussion because they are giving up a lot, right? They're sacrificing a lot. They're giving a lot to the institution to elevate.
They are the product, Matt. Without any athletes, there are no product.
Exactly. So there are things, and I love the current landscape and the current conversation going on, about protecting student athletes, compensating them for their likeness, not flat out paying them.
You're being too nice.
Right. But so
what I want you to get mad. Let's go. Get fired up.
Is specifically the NCAA portal and the ability for student athletes to transfer and how easy it is for them to transfer, and specifically the Jaydin Eierman, discussion from last week. And it happened after we had already posted our 2 podcasts for the week. So, the way it happened, the way things were promoted, the way it was being discussed, it just left a bad taste in my mouth because it's almost like
I agree.
When these student athletes, and I get it. Okay, let's separate the first year student athlete experience beyond the 5th year student athlete experience or the 4th year student athlete experience, because I get it. When you're in this recruiting process, and it's similar for both ends. There's a bit of unknown when a student athlete actually gets on campus for the first time. It's different for the coach. It's different for the student. And, that's the one component of the recruiting process that you just don't know what's going to happen until the athlete gets there and how it's going to work out. So I get it a lot of times in that first year, whether it's geographic location, whether it's just a fit with the coaching staff, whether it's just a fit with the institution. There's a lot of things that don't necessarily go according to plan in that first year for student athletes that they may want, a new fresh start. That as much as they tried to make their best and most informed opinion, it didn't work out for a variety of reasons, right?
Yes.
And I get that. I've been on the side of the student athlete that he's like, hey, coach, everything that you told me, it's just not quite what I thought. It's just too far from home, or the standard and the expectation about what you want to achieve as a program is not consistent with maybe what I thought I wanted to do, and maybe I should get a better start or a new start. And I get that happens, but I do take exception for a guy like Eierman, who's a senior, who's a 3-time All-American, saying, I want to take my ball and go play elsewhere. I've got to look out what's best for me, right? And, some of the things he said, and again, I don't know Jaydin Eierman at all. Huge fan of the way he wrestles, love the way he competes, love the way he gets after it. But, a lot of the things that he was saying is like, I just got to do what's best for me. Well, you know what? What's Brian Smith got to do, right? Where are the rights of Brian Smith and Missouri University and Missouri University athletics? Look at the stuff that they've given this kid. Let's take away the financial. Let's just take away the financial compensation, because I'm not sure what it is, but I would gather after 4 years in a program. I'm sure he's been on scholarship. Almost full the whole time. I'm sure if he wasn't on full, once he became an All-American or multiple-time All-American, he hasn't paid for his school. So that in and of itself, and case in point, let's rewind it all the way back to his senior year. It's not like Eierman. I understand he was a 4-time Missouri State champ. Yes. He was a 2-time Fargo All-American. I get he was a high-level recruit. Was he the elite of the elite? No, he wasn't. So Brian Smith, even though I get it, he was in his backyard. He knew this kid his entire life. There was familiarity with the kid and the kid's familiarity with the program, right? But Brian Smith did do something that other programs did not. Yes, I'm sure big time. I'm talking about the Okie States, the Ohio States, the Penn States, the Iowas recruited this kid out of high school. The level which he was recruited, I don't think was equivalent to the top tier, the blue chips of the blue chips, right? I'm not sure on that. That was I wasn't college recruiting at that time, and you were, so I can't speak explicitly on that. So I'll take your word for it. Yeah, but he wasn't in the vein of like when we're looking at the overall rankings.
He wasn't Braxton Amos or Dustin Plott or AJ Ferrari.
Yeah, I believe he was ranked 40th overall. In the big board, he was ranked 40th in the country coming out of high school. That's a very good recruit. He's a top 100 recruit. Very, very good.
Yes.
But the elite programs are measured by the 5-star recruits. How many of the top 15 recruits are you actually getting? Because the majority of times, if you historically look at the top 15 overall recruits, that's where the biggest yield comes from. Now, do we have outliers? Do we have consistent trends of guys outside the top 15 becoming multiple-time All-Americans, becoming national champs? Yes, we do. Okay.
And and obviously we have guys in the top 15 flopping on a regular basis.
Exactly. Yes. But if you want to look historically, the rankers are pretty accurate with who the best 15 high school guys are. And there's a natural correlation between those top 15 guys and the success they have at the D1 level after that.
Yes.
Jaydin Eierman was not one of those guys. I'll just say it. He was not one of those guys. Did everybody think he could be a good college wrestler? Yes. Would anybody at this point say they could envision him being a 3-time All-American, looking to become a national champ and a 4-time All-American? Probably not. I mean, not many programs can say that, Ben, right? That this guy's going to be a 4-time All-American. This guy's going to be a multiple-time national champ. If you get that even with the top guys, he overachieved what you thought you could get.
Well, yeah, right? I mean, obviously the amount of 4-time All-Americans there are in every class is very few and far between. I mean, we're talking 3, 4, 5 guys per year across the whole country. So you know what, Matt? I thought you were going to go a little more broad scope. I
got plenty.
Oh, you got more
to go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep going then. Okay. Keep going.
All right. So my thing is, where did Brian Smith not do his job? Where did he not do his job? This guy was a 3-time All-American. You know what? And this kid is saying.
So I looked it up while you were talking. I want to. You were really close, Matt. Jaydin Eierman was the number 35 overall recruit. So you were man. You nailed it. I'm really impressed.
Right. So where did Brian Smith fail? Right. And this is what I'm hearing from the kid. Missouri wasn't enough. Brian Smith wasn't enough. He wasn't developed enough. There was something better elsewhere. And, that makes me livid. It makes me livid in the sense of, what do you mean it's not enough? You were a 3-time All-American. And this is just talking from a wrestling standpoint. Hey, let me ask you this, Jaydin Eierman. What didn't Brian Smith get from you? You're saying you didn't get something from him. I don't know what that is. You were a 3-time All-American. But what didn't Brian Smith get from you? I guarantee you,
Matt, I hope
there's a bunch of things.
Yeah, I hope no one gets mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it because it's true. I mean, I know because I have AWA has 2 kids in the program right now at Missouri. I know they told me, because the one kid, Peyton Mako, I sent down there, I said, man, grab Jaydin Eierman every chance you get because he has a special feel for wrestling. And you do too. And I think you could pick up a lot of things from him. And so the first summer, so he's in his second year now, right? So the first summer he goes down there and he comes back then in the summer or whatever because he did summer school. I said, hey, how many times did you work out Eierman? And he said, 0. I said, well, what the hell, man? I told you to go grab him. Why did you work out with him? He said, I didn't see him one time. He doesn't show up. And so, I know one of the things that they told, Brian Smith never told me this. This is my guys. They said Jaydin Eierman wasn't around a lot, at all in the summer. And so obviously, I don't know what the issues were that Jaydin Eierman had, but yeah, I mean, he wasn't giving the coaching staff everything that they had, right, or that he had. And he was kind of holding them at arm's length for whatever reason. And, he didn't really fully, like you said in that interview, he didn't really fully explain that or really give great reasoning as to why that was the case. I think, and listen, I always like Jaydin Eierman. This kind of stinks to me like it stunk to you. But Yeah, I mean, I thought he kind of looked bad in this, and I don't want to sound salty just because I'm a Missouri guy, but I don't feel like he came out looking great in this. And yeah, you are 100% correct when you say it's different for a first-year guy than a fifth-year guy. You know, he's been there 5 years now. What necessarily changed in year 5 that wasn't there in year 1? So yeah, I agree, Matt. The thing that I think stunk the most out of this, and it kind of makes the portal process look like a sham, is that the reason for the portal. If we go back, the reason for the portal is so kids can enter the portal and then they can go explore their options and see if anything else works for them, right? When you enter the portal and then you commit the next day, you've clearly haven't done what the portal's for. You've clearly been talking to other teams prior to even entering the portal. So why wouldn't you just wait a couple weeks and make it not look like a total sham? That was what I was confused by.
Yeah, I mean, the process was concluded before it actually started. I found it interesting. Number one,
so it makes it look like wait.
Yeah, I found it interesting. Number one, that this guy was like making his announcement, like, "Hey, I'm taking my talents to Iowa City." I'm like, what do you mean you're taking your talents to Iowa City? You're still on Missouri's roster, and you're telling why you're currently on a roster. You're telling someone where you're going to go. Are you kidding me? It's a complete abuse of trust and what the program has given to you. There was such a lack of respect for Brian Smith of Missouri. It just blew my mind. Like, wait a second, this kid's still on a roster. He's still on a roster, and he's having a public interview talking about where he wants to go. Like, I know where I want to go. I've known it for a long time.
Why wouldn't he just wait for 2 weeks? Why would he just wait for 2 weeks and make the process actually look like it's supposed to? Because the whole point of the portal is to allow kids to go talk to other coaches and explore their options, which is, I think, a good thing. I mean, frankly, I think a lot of kids think the grass is greener in different pastures, and that's probably just what it looks like from the outside. And, you know, like a program like Missouri, obviously, you know, they haven't won a national title, but there's very few programs, I mean, you probably count them on one hand, who have produced such high-level results on a year-by-year basis. And so when you think the grass looks greener elsewhere, maybe that's not really the case. And that's what the whole process is for. So to say I'm in the portal day 1, and then day 2, when you clearly haven't went on a recruiting trip or anything like that, you already commit, it's like, okay, you just made the process look like a sham. So why do we even have this effing portal process?
So let's call what it is, you know? And a lot of times I do play politically correct here. I do. Right?
Wait, but someone tweeted it, Matt. Someone said, and it wasn't even about Eierman, it was about someone else, but the U23s were a hell of a recruiting process or a recruiting trip.
Right. You can't tell me the kid enters the portal and makes an announcement 2 hours later that he's going to Iowa, that these discussions hadn't been taking place. And it's just not one prior, and it can't just be one discussion. I mean, you don't just impulsively jump unless you're that impulsive. You just don't jump off one conversation. So I would gather that these conversations have been going on for a while. We'll circle back to all this, but I wanted to go in another vein just for a second. And
go for it.
Just remove wrestling from the conversation, Ben. Talk about, let's set aside athletic performance and the wrestling program just for a moment and look at the investment that the entire athletic department gives to each one of these athletes. It's not just the coaches, Ben. It's athletic administrators. Yeah. It's strength and conditioning coaches. It's nutritionists. It's psychologists. It's academic advisors. You have this whole support system that costs money that are developing these kids and investing every one of their seconds of their professional lives to develop these kids in the classroom, in the weight room, in study halls, everywhere. Like, it's not just about wrestling. There's an all-inclusive, all-in investment to grow the athlete, to make him into a man, to make him successful for life, right? And we're completely disregarding that. The real financial dollars that are being invested in these kids. Don't get me started on the names and likeness and compensating these kids. We're developing these kids at a very high level outside of just their sport. We're developing them academically. When a lot of these kids, Ben, A lot of these kids in wrestling, they're the rural equivalent of urban basketball players. We're talking about the majority of these kids are first generation college students. They're ill prepared to navigate the college landscape, the academic landscape. We have full-time people that are committed to helping them grow, develop, being successful academically, getting their degree. They're honing their skills outside of the wrestling room to get a better understanding of what their nutrition should look like, what their strength and conditioning should look like, what their psychology should look like. Being a man, right?
Yeah.
Being accountable for your actions, looking yourself in the mirror, being accountable for your actions. And that's not there. That's completely been disregarded. And I get it.
Matt, let's not. Okay, listen, we're talking about one story, and maybe there's a few stories here. You're trying to throw a whole generation under the bus over a couple of stories. There are a lot of really good kids out there. Kids. They are grown men, right? They're 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So there are a lot of kids out there doing what they should be doing and doing great. And so you kind of letting one or two stories push you over the edge.
Okay.
I mean, I don't disagree. Listen, I don't disagree with anything that you said there. I'm just saying, the Eierman case is an exceptional case, and there's a handful of others we've seen, but I think they're more the exception than the rule.
Right, but usually the exceptions form the rule, right? There's a reason why the portal the portal came into existence, right?
Well, that's kind of what I was going off.
And it's because every athlete, the majority of athletes are pretty content, are pretty satisfied with their decision.
Yes.
And they understand there's going to be bumps along the road, and that's part of life.
Yeah.
And, and to get back to the wrestling part of things, Ben, like Missouri arguably has got to be one of the, if not the best developmental programs in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since Brian Smith, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Now I'm going to be critical on the other side of things. What have we said in a positive vein about Iowa's development of their athletes?
Not much.
And he's saying this is where he needs to go to get further development. Number one, let's completely disregard the style of wrestling he does.
Yeah.
How's his style of wrestling going to evolve in Iowa, Ben? Come on.
Listen, the first thing I said is Tom Brands is going to have a heart attack when Jaydin refuses to shoot or sprawl. What's Tom Brands going to do? He's going to lose his mind. I mean, Come on. It's hilarious. I mean, to me, it's hilarious. And
in addition to this, let's go beyond this. What it really came down to, really what I took away from this decision, and this should be really alarming to a lot of college coaches, that it sounded like he wasn't making a college decision, he was making an RTC decision.
Yeah. Which I don't know why you wouldn't just wait another year and then go make the RTC decision then.
Right. Number one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm talking to a lot of college coaches out there. And there's been a lot of discussion going on about, the validity, the place of RTCs in the sport of D1 wrestling, because they are closely associated. As much as they want to separate it, they're pretty much tied to the hip in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of discussion, especially out of the Big 12. I know the Big 12 is saying they don't want RTCs. They don't want
Brian Smith doesn't want. He's one of the most vocal proponents opponents of the RTCs. Hey, so damn it, Matt! I had a point before you distracted me with Jaydin Eierman not shooting or sprawling. I had a point.
Wait, you distracted yourself. You're the one that brought. I distracted
myself. No, you said what's Iowa going to do, and then it made me laugh because I think Jaydin doesn't shoot or sprawl, and I know Brian has said we try to get him to shoot more, and it's really challenging. And so, what's Tom Brands going to do? It's going to be hilarious. He does really help their 2021 chances, which we should talk about at some point. And then we started talking about their RTCs. Dang it! What the point was I gonna make, Matt? I don't remember. Either way, so hey, if you want to make the RTC discussion, I got to talk. I didn't even write this in our document that we have, but I want to say this. And you have almost more than anyone really exclusive information here, and one thing that's driving me crazy, Matt, and I am an RTC coach, is that people are saying Penn State, they should get all the credit for having their RTC be that great. And here's what I want to say. Cale Sanderson has been, and staff has proven they are the best coaches in the country. I will not deny that in any way, shape, or form. But also not acknowledging that they got a $5 million gift, which no one else has gotten, which nobody else has gotten. And that greatly assists them in being able to recruit and retain RTC members, which then helps them develop everybody else. Not acknowledging that they are not the best fundraisers, but they got the gigantic gift, is doing a disservice to everybody. Fundraising on an RTC basis is very difficult, and they got a $5 million gift, and that helps them immensely in developing the RTC and retaining all of the athletes that they bring through. Is that fair in saying that?
No, that's totally fair. I mean, that's really what it comes down to with all programs. It's not just the RTCs, it's the program itself. Like, yeah, Penn State does have a financial advantage over the other RTCs.
Huge financial advantage.
Huge. Okay. Right? But they also have that. They also have some of those similar advantages within the program. They are funded as well or better than any other just the program itself. And that's why they do have great coaches, but great coaches are only as good as their talent, right? Or as good as the skill that they can develop.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why. Listen, if you want to argue with me, Cale and staff are the number one staff in the country, I'm not going to argue with you whatsoever. But if you want to fail to acknowledge, actually on FRL sometimes they say this, that they should get credit for raising all that money. And they did it. Listen, one dude gave him $5 million. Like, come on. We can give them credit for a lot of other things, but one dude giving them $5 million is one thing they should not get credit for. And I don't even know that they would disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it does help that guy was also a wrestler for the program. He's an alumni for the program, and this is where his passion lies. And hey, give credit to this individual, and I know who it is, that he understands how critical the success of an RTC is to the development of your college program.
So yeah. I mean, because essentially, Matt, what we're talking about is Penn State hasn't lost one guy, have they? Nico Megaludis, I guess, would be the one. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting about?
No, I mean, other guys have left. I mean, Ruth left to Ruth left.
Oh, he doesn't wrestle, so he fights. But who else? Who other wrestlers?
But he left. He did compete out at Arizona State.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So he did leave. Molinaro left as well
because he couldn't beat Zane. I'm assuming. Yeah.
I think there's probably some merit to that. But yeah, I mean, the attrition, they really haven't lost. The guys that they've wanted to keep around are staying around, and they have the luxury, not the luxury. I mean, they do earn it, and they do raise their money. Yeah, the money, is given a big chunk of it by one guy, but I know, the plethora of other people that contribute at a very significant level,
Yeah.
They just have an army of people that are willing to give their resources to continue to make the program successful. So,
man, do you feel like we're going to see an end of the RTCs? Because I for one, like the RTCs, and I don't really think they should be putting out to pasture. I think they provide a lot of good for the American system of wrestling internationally. I just don't know. I think the rich are going to get richer, and I don't really see a problem with that kind of.
But my thing is, Ben, the rich are always going to be rich.
The rich are always going to be rich. And I agree. I said I don't really have an issue with that. Yeah, I don't.
And that's the thing. Like I would argue with the college coaches that are against the RTC just when their argument only comes around, it's a competitive advantage. Like,
yes.
No, Penn State has a competitive advantage in 10 different ways before the RTC.
And that's number 11 and 12.
And that's 11 and 12. So take away the RTCs, the advantage that Penn State has, the advantage that Ohio State has, Okie State, Iowa, Minnesota, all these traditionally strong they're still going to have advantages over everybody else. What's funny is now it's the rich complaining against the ultra rich, right? This is where like
we got class warfare in wrestling.
You got class warfare when you have Okie State saying Penn State has an advantage over me because of what they have in their RTCs. Like, really?
Yes.
Really? That's what you want to say it is? That's the reason you're going to point to why Penn State's winning over Okie State? No.
Yeah.
It's not because they're RTC. There's other things that are going on that they're doing better than Okie State and why they're winning, right? So it's not the RTCs. So it's funny that we're hearing a lot of the rich complaining against the ultra rich about the advantage. And that's probably what we haven't heard. And that's probably why, let's be honest, that's probably why the RTC discussion is having traction, because let's be honest, it's not the coach from Clarion pounding the drum and Clarion leading this charge. It's the Big 12, the coaches in the Big 12. Like,
well, John Smith hates it, and they're one of the perpetually wealthy programs. So I'm really kind of shocked by that.
Yeah. I mean, I just think there is a responsibility. I was talking with, one of our employees a couple months ago about this. I'm like, hey, are we that quick to forget that wrestling was almost dropped from the Olympics? Was essentially dropped and we had to bring it back, right? So there is a responsibility from the elite college coach, for all college coaches, number one, and the elite college programs in the power conferences. You have the responsibility of growing our international wrestling and supplying the talent that's going to make the United States the best in the world. That is a responsibility, whether you like it or not, if you're one of the elite college coaches. You have to accept that responsibility.
That's fair.
Hey, if I'm going to take Ohio State, if Ohio State was offering me the job, part of me, like, hey, this is great. I want to make Ohio State win national titles, but also I have a higher responsibility to the sport of wrestling, not just to my university, to the sport of wrestling, to develop and grow the elite level talent in the country and position it to become Olympic champions and world champions, right? And
yes,
how quickly we are to forget that we almost lost the sport, and what a profound effect it would have on folk style wrestling if wrestling was removed from the Olympics. We're 4 or 5 years removed from that, and we're forgetting that, and we're saying that we should eliminate the RTCs. No, the RTCs are part and parcel of the reason why our ascension has risen in the last cycle and a half, 2 cycles, to put us back into the top 2 in the world on a consistent basis.
Agreed.
And if the RTCs were going to go away, man, that's going to be a huge blow for the sport of wrestling. It's going to roll us back a decade.
America.
Yeah.
It would roll, yes. Yeah, it would be. I don't know. I don't even know how we would replace it. I don't know if it would be possible to replace the current system. Okay, hey Matt, let me circle back. You know what? Let me circle back to something, and let's then cut this episode wherever we end this discussion, and then the whole next episode will be about last weekend's results. We haven't talked about them at all yet. So let's. Here's what I want to talk about. I guess one of the things I will give Penn State, I give Penn State a lot of credit for a lot of things, right? There's raising $5 million is not one of them. I think one of the things they do really well is they have that attitude of gratitude, they call it, right? And appreciating certain things. And I think certain kids, we talk about the grass looking greener in different pastures. And one of the things, and actually, Brian Smith does this pretty well. So I'm not. Jaydin Eierman was the focus of our discussion earlier. So I'm not specifically talking about them anymore. But the attitude of gratitude, if the coach doesn't have that mentality and can't impart that into kids, that you need to have gratitude for all the things that we're blessed with, and that's kind of what you were talking about, right? Gratitude for the strength and conditioning, the academic advisors, blah 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 blah. We go down that list, having gratitude for the things that they're giving you, and you start thinking that the grass is greener in other pastures. That's kind of what can lead to that mentality of I need to go get help somewhere else, and we talk about that. We've talked about that in the youth/high school, right? When we see a kid transfer high schools, they want to always blame everything on everyone else instead of looking internally and saying, what can I do about myself better? Instead of saying, it's that coach's problem, it's that person's problem, it's that person's problem. It's my problem. I need to figure out how to get better, right? So when you have that mentality, and this is hippie part of Ben coming out, right? We can sit and say, and this one is Jaydin Eierman, although I don't really know that he feels this way. I don't know him well enough to say what's inside his head. But to say it's always someone else's problem, generally speaking, although we want to be mad at that person, we want to be upset at that person that is saying those type of things. Those people, they have a hard time being happy in life because they're always finding fault in other people. And so the people who are generally happiest in life, they have that gratitude because they see all the things that they're blessed with. And so those people who have that grass is greener mentality, Matt, they really do struggle to be happy in life. And so I almost feel sorry for them. I feel bad for them that they can't find a little more happiness in what's around them.
Not only that, but when you walk around with that attitude, there's a seed of doubt, percolating in your mind all the time, right? I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. Well, when you have that negativity running through your brain, how are you going to perform at the optimal level? How can you? Yeah. It's impossible. Right. Well,
honestly, I feel like sometimes in wrestling, there's a lot of people with that mentality, that kind of chip on their shoulder, if you will. And I feel like to a certain extent, right, there's a glass ceiling on it, but to a certain extent, it helps people for a while and then it stops helping.
I think there's a fine line.
Wait, actually, let me draw a conclusion there because I never even had this thought, Matt. I think it helps to a certain level, stops helping. And so then when we talk about who has produced transcendent talents in the last 10 years, overwhelmingly, it's Penn State, right? I mean, if you talk about transcendent talents, they've produced 7 of 10 of them, right? And they are a program that has that attitude of gratitude. So there's
that fine line, Ben, right? When you have a chip on your shoulder, that there's a fine line between motivation and resentment, right?
Yes.
A lot of time that shoulder, on that shoulder, when you got that chip, it can motivate you to do really great things. But the more you focus on that chip, the more you focus on what you don't have and what people are saying or the discrediting you, when that motivation turns into resentment, that's where you see diminishing returns, right? And it just appears to me like the Jaydin Eierman, and again, I think it's more about how he delivered the message than the message itself, because I do like the kid, but it seems to me like that chip, he wrestles with that chip, and that's kind of why I love watching him. Like he's got an attitude when he's out there, like there's a fierceness to him. There's an anger there and aggression there that I really appreciate. But it seems like that chip has somewhat turned into a resentment of, I don't have enough. No matter what you give me, it's not going to be enough. And to your point, don't get me wrong. I hear what people say about Penn State. The tongue in cheek stuff about the attitude of gratitude. I have fun, but you know what? They clear their mechanisms for their athletes pretty well to really focus and have a
That's what I'm saying. I think it's great. I'm giving them total credit for that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, because they have these same issues that every other program has going on. It's extremely difficult. A lot of people look at Penn State and all these other elite programs like, man, they should be doing that. Look at all the talent they have. I'll tell you what, Ben, you know it. Talent is tough to coach. Talent is so tough to coach. The egos, the personalities, intermeshing them, balancing them out across the board, not only just 10 weight classes, but when you're talking about a team like Penn State that is deep in every weight class that has talent, like, you think that's an easy job? That's freaking hard.
No. Hard. It's hard.
So hard.
Very, 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 very hard. Okay, man, that was a fun show, Matt. I have a quiz for you. Are you ready for a quiz to end the show?
Okay.
While we've been talking, I searched Jaydin Eierman because I wanted to see what number recruit he was coming out of high school, because you said he was at 48. You were really close because he was number 35. Okay, Matt. So I've done 4 classes, and I think I'm right on this. I'm not perfect, obviously. So I've counted how many multiple-time All-Americans are in the high school senior class of 2015, 14, 13, and 12. What do you think the high-end number is for number of All-American? So they have to be multiple. Two-time All-American or greater. And what do you think the low number is of the top 25? So of the top 25 kids of each class, what do you think on the high end is and on the low end? What's your guess?
I would say high would be 8.
Okay.
Low would be 4.
Okay, so I got, and this is, I think I'm right, is 10 and 6. So I got class of 2015, class of 2014, class of 2013, class of 2012. I got 7, 8, 10, 6. Yeah, I feel like the class of 2012, there was a lot of busts in there. I mean, guys who I don't think they ever started a varsity match, guys who never All-American, and I don't want to go through and throw these guys under the bus, but it's just like, you almost forget, Matt, because when when we look at the current class, like, oh my God, these guys are so good, and they are for the high school level. But then when you see how many of them actually pan out, it's like, oh, this guy never even started a match. Matt, he never started a Division I match.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's totally crazy. I mean, we're talking about a guy in the top 10 who never started Division I matches. Yeah, it's wild to think about. And you never see it in the class that you're in. But then you look back at these lists and you go, oh God, I forgot about that guy. He never even wrestled D1. Yeah, it's wild. So okay, that'll be it. Show 100. We had fun. We didn't talk about any wrestling results whatsoever. So when we come back next time, we'll talk about all the wrestling results that happened last weekend. Peace. Talk to you guys later.
See ya.